Hi, my name is Yubo and I'm studying biochemistry at Imperial. I'm looking into doing a strategy consultant role. Alongside my degree, I've also been exploring the commercial side of science. This year, I'm leading a team to the finals of Imperial's FONSMAD competition. We're building a passive, low-cost vaccine monitoring device where we're targeting cold chain outreach in Africa. I've also been doing the customer segmentation work where we've had meetings with WHO, the Gates Foundation, and UNICEF to validate our product. And for me, this intersection between science and commercial problem solving is what intrigues me to consulting.
So that was my pull towards consulting, a fusion of science and commercial problem solving. For this hackathon, I wanted to test if I could apply that same line of thinking on a real case. Let me show you what I did.
The case is Brightwell Retail, a mid-market retailer whose revenue growth had gone flat despite increased marketing investment. That's the core question I needed to answer. Before going into the case itself, it's worth setting out where I was starting from. Beyond FONSMAD, I'm a project manager at Imperial Consultancy Group, currently leading a go-to-market strategy for a climate tech startup. I also took part in British Airways Spring Insight Week, building a structured framework under time pressure. What both had in common was where I performed strongest once a structure already existed. What I hadn't tested was building that structure myself from an ambiguous brief with nothing handed to me. That's exactly what this project was for. Here's a problem I was given. Brightwell's revenue growth had slowed despite higher marketing spend. Before touching any data, I broke that into three meaty branches: acquisition versus retention, customer concentration, and pricing and basket size. I prioritized acquisition versus retention first. Marketing spend is an acquisition lever, so flat growth despite more of it pointed towards retention. That's a branch I tested hardest, and it turned out to be the one that mattered. To test that, I needed to know where value sits in the business. Segment A is 20% of customers, but 60% of revenue. That concentration matters beyond the number itself. It tells you where any pricing or retention decision needs to be aimed. From here, I weighted every piece of evidence by whether it told me something about segment A specifically.
Revenue held flat at £10 million, which sounds fine until you decompose it. New customers grew 10%, but churn ran at 25% of the existing base. That's more than double the replacement rate. Average basket also fell from £100 to £96. This suggests that acquisition isn't the problem, retention is. The flat top line was masking a leak, not solving one. I tested that against the other two hypotheses before committing to it.
All three hypotheses are supported by the evidence, but I treat retention as primary because it's the only one that explains the actual symptom: flat growth despite more acquisition spend. The other two don't compete with it, they build on it. Concentration tells you where to focus, pricing tells you which lever to pull, once retention tells you what's broken. With retention confirmed as a constraint, the question was what to do about it. I evaluated two options: a blanket 10% price increase, which I rejected. With an elasticity at -1.2, it destroys demand hardest among price-sensitive customers, who are most of the base and costs roughly £200,000. It also does nothing for retention. Instead, a premium tier for segment A only, which is £20 to £25, aimed at customers who had already shown willingness to pay. Even the conservative adoption scenario beats a blanket increase. The trade-off was breadth versus precision. The premium tier captures value where it actually sits without touching the other 80% of customers. That's why I selected it. Rather than rolling this out immediately, I staged it. Pilot, measure for a quarter, then scale only if adoption, churn, and revenue per customer all move the right way. In science, I would want more certainty before acting. Here, I had to accept that uncertainty can't be removed, only tested cheaply and reversed if wrong. The real lesson wasn't the £25 premium tier. It was the process behind it. My science background taught me to analyze everything before deciding. This taught me to find the single constraint that matters and go deep there. My prior experience showed I could work within a consulting structure. This project shows I can build one myself from nothing under ambiguity. That gives me 4 concrete things for an interview: issue tree structuring, evidence-based hypothesis testing, a defensible trade-off decision, and a risk-managed recommendation. Thank you so much for listening.